And what appears on my running order in front of me may well be entirely different from what's appearing on the screen now, given what Neil Channing has been doing behind the scenes while I've been talking to Patrick Veitch. But here we go. Hillsin is the place we have to start. I mean, it's not something that necessarily can promote a huge discussion, Neil, as such, but the verdict was reached, and it meant that Dylan Kitts, who had admitted his culpability, was duly found in breach, as was John Higgins, who was an associate of the official owner of the horse. He didn't attend the hearing, he's 78. But Chris Honour, whilst he was found to have misled the inquiry in part, he was largely acquitted of the more serious charges placed against him, the trainer. So that, I suppose, was the key news point out of it, that Chris Honour, we don't know what the sentence is going to be yet, but he was broadly acquitted on most of the charges.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, if you watch the race, you're going to think, oh, my God, you know, the BHA need to do something about this kind of thing. And it's, you know, justice. Yeah, it's people say on these things, oh, it's, you know, why does it take so long? But I think if you ask the people involved, they'll tell you that it's quite complicated. People need to get witnesses together and statements, and there's emails flying back and forward, and you know, everybody's well lawyered up for these things. I don't think it's a massive surprise that it takes this long for quite a serious case.
Yes.
It's possibly with the BHA, some of the more kind of minor things. You know, when they take months, you kind of feel like, well, that could be done quicker. But this is a proper major case. I don't. To me, it's not a surprise that it takes quite that long.
I thought there was some slightly shocking detail in the case, Eve. And the thing that struck me was, you know, how easily still a young jockey can be left in such a vulnerable position.
Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah, that's pretty shocking. And I don't know, how do you stop it?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, it's impossible to stop, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is, but it
must be. They need to have it. They must have it in the jockeys' training, don't they? When
they have, absolutely.
Because when they have conditional and apprentice licences, they must have it. And if someone does this, there must be a helpline or something that they can go to.
Much more so than was the case before.
They said in the ruling, didn't they, that he had opportunities to come forward and you know, prior and say, look, this is happening or whatever, and he chose not to. You know, he could have done that before the race, but I don't know. I mean, you're being threatened or whatever. It's
threatening your family.
I think
you know, even if it means you break your neck, this horse must not win.
It's pretty awful, isn't it?
Now, even if you have a propensity to associate with people who you shouldn't be associating with, if you are young and not in a position of power and you are prepared to do stuff for very small amounts of money, then it shows you the level of vulnerability you must have.
I know we've run out of time, but just quickly, you know, in terms of the punishments, you know, we've got an elder gentleman who probably isn't that bothered if he can't own any more horses or go racing. We've got a jockey that's given up some time ago. It's kind of a bit sort of slightly pointless in some ways that they're going to be probably warned off, and but you know, obviously we need to. Justice has to be seen to be done.
Yeah, I think it's like should there be, but maybe in the future saying this is what will happen if you do it.
That's definitely true, but I mean, should there be more kind of, you know, should the police have been involved?
Well, and the police are getting involved in a case where we cannot name the alleged perpetrator.
And cheating and gambling.
Greater Manchester police are getting involved in a case there.
And cheating and gambling's been an offence now since 2007. Only one person's ever been prosecuted for it.
Yeah, but of course, when we talked about the case of the MPs who were prosecuted, because they had inside information on the election
Sorry, when
days.
I said prosecuted, found guilty.
Yeah. But you at the time were saying, well, actually, this is very difficult for the police to get involved with. Yeah. Because the procedure is very difficult.
Well, you know, it's taken the BHA, a team of experts, a long time to get some justice here. I'm not being critical of that time, but can you imagine, you know, the local constabulary dealing with this? I can't really.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about the Chancellor, Rachael Reeves, and the extent to which she might be lobbied as regards the legislation on gambling taxation. Just before we do, Eve, you were at the Axe the Racing Tax event in London a couple of weeks ago. We chatted there.
Yeah, I was there.
Do you feel like the noise that is being made is impactful?
I think it's really difficult. I mean, the government have not really listened to anyone at all about any other subjects. Why are they going to listen to us? But the opposite of doing something is doing nothing, and we can't do nothing. We have to try, and hopefully we are making inroads, even if they may be small.
Do you know, I had this weird dream the other night? It was honestly, you wouldn't believe it, that John Gosden was at the state banquet for Donald Trump, sitting between Princess Anne and Rachael Reeves.
Was he not?
And then I realised it was actually not a dream at all. So hopefully he did his bit, you know, got past Princess Anne and told Rachael what to do.
I'm surprised you weren't there, actually. But
the serious point about this is that she's been invited to an event at the Tory Party conference by...
Labour Party conference.
Labour conference.
Yeah.
Do beg your pardon.
So it was similar, very similar.
Very similar.
Very easy to confuse the two these days.
Sorry, she's been invited to an event, the clock is running down.
Yeah.
At the Labour Party conference by Michael Duggar, who is the chair of the Betting and Gaming Council, but it's not in his capacity as chair of the BGC. It's in his capacity as a non-executive director of Brunswick, the PR company. And they're saying, well, should a guy from the Betting and Gaming Council be in a position where he might be able to lobby the Chancellor when this important legislation is coming out? But the point is, the article then goes on to say they've been friends since they were teenagers and blah, 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 blah. Well, if he really wanted to talk to her, he could just pick up the phone, couldn't he, if that was the case?
It definitely could do. I thought more interesting from that article in The Guardian was Daisy Cooper, the deputy leader of the Lib Dems, coming out and saying that she thought it was terrible and a disgraceful look and blah, blah, blah. And then Lucy Powell, who's likely to be the next deputy leader of the Labour Party, she's about 8-1 on to win that contest. She's in the Daily Mirror, I think, either yesterday or maybe the Sunday Mirror today, saying that Rachael Reeves should tax gambling to feed the poor, basically. You know, obviously I'm in favour of...
Which is exactly what Gordon Brown said. Which is exactly what Gordon Brown said.
Yeah. But you know, there is a feeling that the sort of centre-left of the Labour Party have established a little bit of a kind of grouping around Lucy Powell, and there's a bit of pressure coming from that quarter. It feels to me like, you know, you talk about the mood music and the way the Axe the Tax is going. I just feel like most MPs are seeing, big gambling corporations. They've got lots of money. Can't we have some of it because we need money?
And of course, we'll be talking more about that with Tom Saville in a few moments' time. Let's talk about what's now going to be known as the Poniros Rule. The BHA brought forward a raft of initiatives to really try and make British jump racing more competitive, fairer, give more opportunities for horses developing through the ranks, novice chases. There was a lot of really interesting and some good work here, but obviously the headline ended up causing the most controversy, which was that if a horse like Poniros, unraced over hurdles, tried to run the Triumph Hurdle this time round, he wouldn't be able to run, because they brought in a rule that says you've either got to be rated 110 to run in one of these Grade 1 novice races, a bit like you do in an open race, or you have to have a piece of rateable form by the handicapper to get in. So you can't run a horse unraced over hurdles in a race like the Triumph Hurdle, and this didn't go down terribly well. Shutting the door after the horse has bolted, Eve, or is it generally speaking a good rule that a horse should have some hurdling experience before tackling good ones?
I think the public should be able to see them, and I think they probably should have run in a hurdle race before, but it wasn't the rule then, so they were quite within their rights to do it.
And that was part of the argument, was that for the betting public, it's better to have these horses a sight of these horses before. That was one plank of the argument. As a punter, does that hold water?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a bit tabloidese to call it the Poniros Rule. I'm sure the BHA wouldn't headline it as the Poniros Rule. I mean, they would say probably that in a world where we've got these kind of mega stables, you know, we don't racing as a whole going forward doesn't want a lot of races to be sorted out at home in gallops, where insiders know the order of the horses and who are the best ones and who are the worst ones, and the racing public don't get the opportunity to see any of that. That should all be played out on the racecourse. Also, we talk all the time about small fields in races in the winter. Let's get some more horses to the races running in decent races.
Go on, Eve.
The other thing is, how do we know that he can jump a hurdle at racing pace? Doesn't matter how much schooling you do at home, they need to prove it. If, God forbid, the worst thing had happened, had he not, and he was in the lead and he was trying to jump at the racing pace and something awful had happened to the horse, the whole racing public would be like, what's going on, blah, 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 blah.
And the BHA made that point.
So I do think that they need to prove that they can jump a hurdle at racing pace.
Is there not a certain irony of the fact the rule has come in after a horse has actually gone and won it and has jumped impeccably and was a horse of extremely high calibre?
And I agree. And they've done nothing wrong. That is absolutely, the rule was there.
And also,
not
it's not the first year. You know, I think Willie Mullins has had unraced horse in the Triumph Hurdle for 3 or 4 years now.
I think the interesting thing is if you get a horse that, say, had one run over hurdles in France, and you really don't know what that form's worth, and he's asking to run it in the Triumph Hurdle, then the handicapper has to make a decision. Is this a piece of rateable form over 110 or not?
Who knows?
And so you're leaving yourself a little bit of a grey area there.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I just do think they need to prove that they can jump a hurdle at racing pace.
How did we get through the whole 2 minutes talking about restricting horses running in certain races without mentioning the Windsor Castle?
The Windsor Castle, which, of course, Van Aruken would have been still eligible for next year. And Zavatiri. For that matter.
So it's not personal. Everyone keeps saying, oh, it's only because you... It's not personal. I just think it's the wrong decision. But I've beat that.
If that was a subject, it would say the Eve.
I've beat that drum enough. I think we've done that.
The Johnson Houghton principle. Right. Let's talk about the jockey exodus. Well, is it an exodus? No, not really. I mean, there are some jockeys who are going to Hong Kong for bits or all of the winter. So Holly Doyle's going for a couple of months. Maxime Guillon's going for another period. Dylan Brown McMonagle's going for a couple of months. They're going to lose nothing here, and they're just going to add plenty to what's already a pretty dynamic scene in Hong Kong. But Richard Kingscote's there permanently. David Probert's there permanently. Harry Bentley's there permanently. Andrea Razzani's there permanently. Meanwhile, in America, Ben Curtis is mopping up, Frankie Dettori's mopping up, and there are plenty more as well doing extremely well. Rachel King's flying in Australia. There are British jockeys going here, there and everywhere, even doing very well. Should we be more worried about a jockey drain than a horse drain?
Doesn't it just show that we're teaching them how to ride racing? That we've got the best? Doesn't it just prove we've got the best here? We should be proud.
Yes, we should be proud of our exports, but do we not want to be hanging on to some of them?
Of course we do, but we've still got very good jockeys here.
But most of them can't make a living here. That's the problem, isn't it? Or they can't make a decent living here. It's so hard. I think they can make a decent living when they're riding, but it's making enough living to because it's not a long career, what you do afterwards. So I think when you're riding, you're making... Not plenty, but you're doing all right. You're doing all right, you know. The average Joe jockey are probably... I mean, the ones that are going there, they're making plenty. Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me. No, they're making plenty here. David Probert riding 100 winners a year.
People in the top 20.
They've got to be in the top 20 here to get there.
But they're going to make a shed load more
there. They're going to make a shed load more there. But then that allows people that aren't doing quite so well to make it in the top 20 here.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of on the fence about it. I think, you know, we should be proud of our exports.
Do you think jockeys should be getting more from the sport over and above their riding fees and percentages of what's pretty low prize money? Should they receive appearance money, for example? Should they be getting their transport paid for them to the races?
Yeah, but then what about trainers? Why shouldn't we?
Well, I mean,
I think what we really need to establish is the better and clearer division of prize money, because I know that jockeys, I think they get 7% of a winner, but they only get 2.5% of place money. Now, that doesn't encourage them to ride out, does it, for the finish? Trainers, we do. I mean, you ask any owner what they think a trainer or a jockey gets, and they would say 10% of everything.
They don't.
They don't. I think we get 5.5 and 7. I mean, it should be, if they made a clearer division of the prize money, what prize money there is, we need to build the prize money, but if they made it so that jockeys got, I don't know, 8%, trainers got 9%, 10%, or whatever it is, or 10% each.
Of place money.
Of everything, of all prize money. That's what they do abroad. If you go to Dubai, it says you very clearly what each percentage is out of the prize pot. Here, nobody's got a clue. Not a clue.
But then, of course, you'd have people saying, well, hang on a minute, the owner's taking on more burden when they get nothing back as it is.
Yeah, but they're already taking... They only get 75% of the pot. But they don't quite know how it's going out. Where's the rest of it going? Nobody knows.
Admin, I presume, is it?
Yeah, thank you. Weatherbiz, I think, and BHO, whatever. But so they're already 25% of the pot is already going out of the pot, but it just needs to be made clearer.
But it's not being distributed properly.
Where it's being distributed.
Okay.
And yeah, that's one of my drums that I like to bang.
Just one other very quick thing. You know, we're talking about axe the racing tax all the time these days. Often the argument, which is kind of in the background, but I think it should perhaps be more at the foreground, is the soft power thing about why is British racing important in the culture of the UK and whatever. Jockeys being sent all over the world is another example of, you know, the sport's prestige and the soft power that we gain from having a strong horse racing product.
Well, that was John Gosden's central argument when he made the speech at the racing tax debate. David Maxwell has retired this week at the age of 47, one of the most popular figures in the sport thanks to his exploits as an amateur rider for probably over 2 decades. But I thought the more interesting talking point, Eve, was why his exploits had resonated so much with people. And why, for all the brickbats he used to get from angry punters on social media, broadly speaking, the sport embraced him to the extent that it has and really appreciated what he was doing.
Well, he was riding his own horses, he's putting his own money in, and he was doing a damn good job at it. And why not? You know, if you can, why not? It was great. Great to see.
And if you're going to do that, it's one thing to ride the horse, it's another to be able to talk about it well and to be a sort of advocate for the pure joy of it, really.
Yeah, I always liked it whenever the very popular Nick Luck Daily podcast, he was a regular guest on, and I liked to listen to that. He's always great fun. I've never met him. He seems like a brilliant guy. I mean, we have a history of, you know, what was that fellow, Brod Munro Wilson, that used to ride in the Grand National, the Drunken Duck,
yeah.
And you know, various other people.
The Duke of Albuquerque.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
I think Dave would rail against comparisons with Munro Wilson. All the
Sorry about that.
He looked pretty stylish. Adds to the rich tapestry of racing.
Yeah, I think so. And also, like other sports, if you think of like motor racing, there's always been a history of people, you know, putting their money in buying the team and being a motor racing driver. That's considered to be just a kind of normal part of taking part in that sport. Show jumping as well. People buy their own horses and
for money that would make what Cornwall pay for yearlings look chicken feed, or
but I mean,
pay for yearlings look like chicken feed.
It's not like they suddenly, you know, put a jockey on it. They ride them themselves. So it's, I mean, they do both, but it's. I never had a problem with David Maxwell riding. I think it's slightly a shame that now he's retiring. A lot of the conversation about him has to be, you know, you have to start off by saying, well, you know, he wasn't the smoothest rider or whatever.
Who cares? That's not the point.
I didn't think that was very nice, really. Great guy.
I hope he is. I think he is a member of the Jockey Club. I hope they use him and use him more, because he's a very clever man with a lot to offer the sport. Wolverhampton has got a dog track.
Yeah, I saw that they had their first meeting last night, so they've put a dog track in the middle of the racetrack. And,
I resisted the obvious gag there, but anyway.
Yeah. I also heard somebody saying that Toaster are trying to get some horse fixtures back, and obviously they have a dog track as well.
Toaster are getting some schooling races there, aren't there? But in order to
that'd be a stepping stone, wouldn't it?
But getting fixtures back is...
It's probably a hard game, yeah. But
I don't really know. What, because of the ground, or because they won't be able to get them from other people?
Because they've relinquished them.
Oh, I see.
To get them back.
Yeah, nobody wants to give up their fixtures. No. But I just wondered whether this was going to become a thing. You know, the dog tracks have obviously closed down in city centre places because of property prices. You know, having a dog track in the middle of a racetrack seems like a sensible enough idea, in that you've got a stadium there, people that like punting are used to going there. The only downside I could slightly see was, given that in Wales recently, dog racing has been banned due to the Labour Party in Wales, even though there aren't really any official greyhound tracks in Wales. Scotland, there are no longer any greyhound racing tracks, but the SNP are talking about banning greyhound racing. I think it's in their manifesto. Does horse racing want to kind of tie itself too closely to dog racing in that situation? I don't know.
What's your view?
Well, I kind of worry a little bit that if we sort of ally ourselves, this whole kind of social licence thing, there's very much
that's
more...
what the BHA are clearly worried about, isn't it? Because I asked Brandt about greyhounds last week as part of the betting tax.
Yeah.
Should greyhound racing get a carve-out in the betting tax?
Well, he's probably got it.
It's reliant on
But he's got to say we're just paddling our own canoe. We got enough to worry about worrying about ourselves without
you could
worrying
say,
about
look, they're funded along the same model. They deserve the same tax break.
Yeah. But I guess Brandt would say, well, that's up to them to fight their battle, isn't it? We can't be doing that for them.
God, if everyone took that attitude in life, we'd all be...
Very lonely, wouldn't we?
We would be, well, exactly. Hang on, whoa, I was about to stop there. Because he added another one.
Oh, dear.
Going biases. You wanted to talk about...
I didn't.
I thought it was you.
No, it's not me. I haven't had it.
You've got no beef. You've got no beef at all, and you're just smiling and basking in the glory of winning Group 1 race.
But it's you speak first.
Well, I'll
spoken quite a lot. I'd like to let you chip in.
I'll definitely let you chip in.
That's kind. How very generous.
All I was going to say was it says in the form book that the St Leger was run on soft ground. It obviously wasn't. A few weeks ago at Haydock, we had a sprint race where the clerk of the course said the going stick shows that you want to be on the stand side. They gave all the measurements, all the information was there for punters. I'm very happy about that. Although there was a clear bias in the going, we all knew what that bias was beforehand. Yesterday, there was an interview on Racing TV where the clerk of the course at Ayr said, the going stick shows that the far side and the centre is going to be better than the stand side. We never saw those readings. They were never publicised. They weren't on the BHA website. They weren't on Air's website. We didn't find out what they were. There was clearly a bias to the far side. We're telling people it's a cerebral sport where you can solve the puzzle, and it's not like playing roulette. It looked a bit like playing roulette when you don't know which side is going to be much faster than the other. I saw Johnny Deneen, he made a funny comment. He said that Ladbrokes are sponsoring the Air Gold, Silver and Bronze Cup. It's an absolute lottery. I'm sure they'd like to sponsor the aluminium, the tin and the plastic one as well, because, it's so hard to, get the results. It's a lot harder if you don't know what the going is and which part of the track.
Eve, do you want to add?
Well, it's frustrating when there's a big going bias on one part of the track and the other, and you happen to be drawn on the wrong side of the track. But I also think a lot of it is perception, and a lot of it is in perception of the jockeys. I'll give you an example of when Chipotle won the Windsor Castle. They said you had to be up the stand side. You could not win the far side. You couldn't win the far side. So all the jockeys over the stand side, over the stand side. The race before ours, or the Hunt Cup, someone won on the far side. We were drawn one. And I went, thank God for that. At least they're not all going to come over. And then it was just where the pace was. So I think there is such thing as going bias, but I do think a lot of it is jockey perception. Well,
it's when over the course of a meeting of several days, they start to try and follow the bias around. Yeah. But they tend to be behind the ball.
Yeah. But I actually do think a lot of it is where the actual pace is in the race. A lot of it is that.
All right. That, I think, completes this week's Talking Points.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.